Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla stock, what we can expect moving into tomorrow, and essentially really just my thoughts to finish off the week and potentially into next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, as per usual, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, technical analysis, thoughts, etc., I do share my thoughts every single day the market is open with my members down. I have a membership section on YouTube where I share these thoughts with my members every single day the market is open for just $3 a month, mainly on Tesla. And sometimes I introduce obviously other stocks, like just today I did Meta, for instance. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that, plus intraday thoughts on NVIDIA every single day as well. So that link is down below. I'd love to have you there, but let's just jump right into it. Tesla closing the day, unfortunately, down almost 6%, which is a decent amount. And unfortunately, just make it simple, I do expect a bit more pain ahead. Closing at $311 per share, which compared to the market, definitely an underperformance, with the market's definitely bleeding today, finally. And I unfortunately do expect a bit more pain for the markets moving ahead. So let me just really quickly talk about what I personally foresee happening for the markets. You can see some, decent divergences were setting up on the market across the board, right? Especially on QQQ. So to make it really simple, bring out the 21 EMA, which is right over here. And pretty much, all I expect right now for the market SPY and QQQ, well, QQQ, I expect it to move down ultimately, maybe even as early as tomorrow, down to closer to $500 essentially per share. And for SPY, I expect it to move down to about that 586 roughly per share tomorrow as well. And as long as that holds, I think the market's still chilling. But unfortunately, that would put on most likely, some extra pressure on Tesla stock as well. But as we all know, right, and Tesla is its own beast, right? It doesn't matter always what the markets are doing. Like, for instance, I was calling for Tesla coming down to about $300 per share. Some people were telling me that won't happen unless the markets are down like 5%. I don't really understand why people say that stuff. Tesla has been moving up and down like 5-6% while the markets are essentially flats, right? That's just not how it works, right? Especially when Tesla is this volatile. It will just do its own thing. The market can be up 2%. Tesla can still be down 5%. It doesn't matter. It's not always that correlated, especially for Tesla stock. Now, something like NVIDIA, for instance, much more correlated. Tesla, much less so. Anyway, let's jump into it. So I'm not gonna lie, there's some concerning signs here. So where do we want to start? Let's start with the bullish side first. The bullish side is, there are some bullish signs here for sure, right? It's not all bad news. For instance, Tesla's obviously still in an overall uptrend recently since we had this change of character and not all-time high, but break over here. So for instance, we were trending down like this, and then we started making higher highs and higher lows, and then we started consolidating, making lower highs but higher lows, and then we ultimately broke out and we essentially made a fresh higher high. Now it's a matter of where do we set that higher low? Well, assuming we set a higher low, which we should, obviously, you assume you will for now until proven otherwise. So Tesla's still overall bullish. Like, I want to make that really clear, right? The chart on the daily, in my opinion, overall, even though there are definitely some concerning signs, it's still technically speaking bullish, right? So again, what I personally foresee happening for Tesla is, first level is naturally, I think probably even as early as tomorrow, honestly, at this point, we come down to about $300 per share. That's kind of my first main target. So if I take Fibonacci from up here to up here, you can see, okay, well, the actual Fibonacci retracement is down to 285, but 300 is an important level mainly because, we obviously stalled at it before. It's a psychological level as well. And it was that pivot point level from back here as well. So 300 is an important level. My only issue with 300 is this, right? This is my problem with 300. Right now, it feels like everyone and their mother is looking at 300, and everyone and their mother is thinking, hey, if we see 300, I'm loading the boat. And it feels like everyone is thinking that. Remember how I said the exact same thing, but in the flip scenario, sort of, where back when we came up over here, remember how I mentioned the exact same thing? You can go back to this video back on October 24th or 25th. It was one of those. How I mentioned the same thing, just flipped, where everyone here is eyeballing, 270, guys. Hey, 270. Everyone's looking for 270, right? And we broke 270 just to collapse and pretty much bleed down like 15%, right? Because everyone was just eyeballing. The level was too obvious. Like, everyone was staring at 270. It was too obvious. And right now, I feel like the opposite is true in a sense where everyone is staring at 300. Everyone is looking at 300. So usually this means one of two things will happen. Either we come down and don't actually get to 300. We actually stop below, maybe like 305 or 6 or something like that. And everyone waiting for 300 misses out, and then Tesla bounces. Everyone thinks, oh my God, the bottom is in. I missed it, but you know what? I'll get in now. I'll get in now because the bottom is in. And they get on the rally, and maybe it goes a little bit higher, but then ultimately sells off down even further. That's kind of what I expect. Or the other option is, well, we go pretty much well below 300, and everyone that entered, all in at 300, because that's what everyone thinks the bottom is now, well, they get bagged, and then they get panicked out, and then we bounce. So I expect one of those two things to happen. So again, I wouldn't put like an insane amount of weight at 300. Like there, again, there is a possibility we bounce from there. There is, absolutely a chance that does happen. But for me personally, holy shit. I don't know if you guys saw that. My cat just leaped across. I don't know if you guys, Jesus. My cat just jumped from this chair all the way to my desk right here. I don't know if that got caught on camera, but she just yeeted across. That was, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of scared me. Anyways, yeah. So anyway, the thing I'm personally looking at more so than 300, like, I might mess around 300 a little bit, but what I really want to see personally, the level I get, much more interested, again, take the Fibonacci. Fibonacci's are crucial, guys. Fibonacci's, like, very important. Fibonacci's are just, that's all I want to say. Very, very important to understand. 285 roughly, right? 285. That's the first level. That's the first level I start getting a little more interested. That's the 285 level because that's the 618 Fibonacci retracement from the recent swing low we had over here to that clearly recent and most likely at this point swing high. So that's the first level I'll be kind of more interested in, around there. But the level I really get interested, the level where I'm like, okay, now I feel like I'm getting a discount. Now, it's like when you go to the grocery store and your favorite thing is like 25, 50% off or whatever. In this case, it's closer to 70% off. Is around that 786 level, right? That 786 level roughly is where I'm getting a lot more interested. This is right here, which is going to be somewhere around the 265 range. That's where I get very interested. Now we're talking. You know what? Again, I don't know if we'll get there. I'm not saying we will get there. I'm not saying that we're 100% going there. I'm saying this, if I see those prices, now I'm interested. Think of it as like a Black Friday sale, right? Because you pretty much get a huge discount on this massive rally retracement, right? That's kind of how Fibonacci's work essentially, right? You get a massive, massive discount. And not only that, if that happens, let's say sometime next week, we most likely will also coincide with that market bias retest as well. And again, that's where I'm getting very, very excited. Whether or not we'll get there is another story. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But all you can do is just have these targets in your mind that, you're thinking to yourself, if we see these ranges, if we see these levels, I'm buying. And to me, personally speaking, not financial advice, that's my level. Now, that's the bullish side roughly, right? That's talking about, like, buying the dip essentially. Now, let's talk about the bearish side, because there's an absolutely bearish thing here that I really don't like to see. It's something that genuinely makes me worried, and honestly even puts fear in me that maybe we don't even bounce off this level. Maybe this level won't even be enough to potentially hold what, this crater coming up right now of us just moving down very aggressively. Why is that, right? What's making me give these fears, right? Pretty simply put, this situation right here, I don't like this, right? I do not like what I see here today. Now, we talked about this channel breakout, which was bullish, right? And I always say how, these rising channels breaking to the upside is pretty rare. Like that's pretty extreme bullish momentum. You don't see that very often, but we did break out of it. And not only that, we actually held it. We came down and we actually held it as support 2 days in a row, right? On that channel. We held it 2 days in a row, which is obviously really, really good. But what we didn't do today is we didn't continue holding it, right? We did not continue holding it. I have that 3-day rule. We didn't follow it. On the third day is when we collapsed. And what is this little picture paint, right? What does this picture paint? To me personally, what it paints is an extremely large false breakouts, right? Again, this is just the way I trade. This is the way I look at charts. I could be completely wrong, and maybe we bounce from here and we just rocket back out of this channel. Always a possibility. But you don't know that, and you only can assume what you see, right? And from what I see is I see a massive, 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 astronomical false breakouts. I view false breakouts, whether it's to the downside, for instance, like remember when we had the false breakout here? Remember right before earnings, we had this little false breakout, which it was a false breakout, and we kind of, closed right underneath the channel. And then what do? We rocketed back up, and then we rocketed up even more. We're doing the exact opposite, just doing much more extreme level potentially, because this is a massive false breakout, right? And it looks even more so on the weekly. For instance, if I go to the weekly chart and you do the pretty much exact same thing, really, right? Again, take this channel. Where did I have it from? Let me double check here. I had it from all the way back here. Okay, so all the way here, something like this, right? Take this massive channel, put it somewhere around like this. Same idea, right? Massive. Let me remove this volume profile for. Actually, I'll keep it. Massive false breakout on the weekly, right? Massive line up here, nice little resistance point on the weekly back here, and then we broke above it, and now we're closing well below it, right? Assuming we close well below. There's obviously a chance we don't tomorrow. Maybe we somehow rocket past it tomorrow, not looking likely with after market hours, but that is something to consider, right? But the fact that we're having a massive false breakout, the fact that we're potentially seemingly like on the weekly and already did on the daily closing down below it, again, huge false breakout. And whenever these things happen, whenever I see a false breakout in either direction, I usually expect a slingshot effect in the opposite direction, just like we saw down here. And at this point, I would not be surprised if we see it up here. And honestly, we can maybe even slingshot back down to my level of around the 270-ish. Could happen really quickly, like really quick. I'm not saying it will, but it could happen really quickly. Like this, I genuinely view this as very bearish. I'm not trying to, put fear. I'm not trying to be like a, a Tesla bear. I'm not trying to, I just say it how I see it. And again, false breakouts, I view them in this case, extremely bearish or extremely bullish in the opposite direction, bearish in this case. So let's see how it plays out. Let's give it time, right? No, let's not jump to conclusions, but just kind of giving you my warning sign here that, to me, it's a pretty massive warning sign. So let's see how it plays out. Now, the question is, am I forgetting anything here? I don't think I'm forgetting too much here. Let me see. I'm pretty sure that's more. There was one more thing I wanted to mention, but I just don't remember exactly what it was. I guess the bands, right? For instance, the bands. Remember I talked about the bands. How I mentioned many times, we were extremely overbought, guys. We were so overbought, the bands literally can't keep up. Like we were so far out of the bands that it's pretty much comical. And everyone was telling me, guys, it's going to 400. We're going to 400 tomorrow, man. But, again, maybe we could have, but we aren't. And so far, it's looking like we probably won't anytime soon either, right? Because we're getting some very bearish reactions here, very bearish candles, very bearish reactions, very bearish false breakouts. And let's see how it plays out. The thing I wanted to mention actually was this. Now, this is an extreme case. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's always good to consider options. This is just like, if it happens, watch out. Again, just kind of throwing it out there. But we may get a dark cloud cover pattern on the weekly time frame. Now, this only happens if we close below the halfway point roughly of this weekly candle here. So essentially, we had a false breakout, we come back down below, and we close at or below the halfway point, which will be somewhere around the mid, we'll say 280s. So for instance, if Tesla somehow crashes tomorrow and closes, like let's say at about 285-ish or lower, very bearish. That is a dark cloud reversal pattern, which we've talked about before on this channel, that happened before with other stocks. And this is kind of what it looks like. And it's a very bearish reversal pattern. And it's a pretty powerful one too. For instance, if I go to Bulkowski, let's take a look at the percentage of this, right? You can see here, bearish reversal 60% of the time. Obviously nothing's perfect, but if this plays out on the weekly, and if we crash tomorrow and we go to about 285 or lower, and that's how we close the weekly candle, I'd be careful. Again, not saying it will, but just watch potentially for that scenario to play out. We'll see if it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does. But anyway, that's kind of all I'm seeing right now in terms of options flow. Tesla, let's take a quick peek on Tesla's options flow. Obviously, definitely some bearishness coming in, some bullishness as well, but definitely bearishness is starting to really creep up. The bulls are nowhere near as powerful as they were the past few days as we were rocking up. The bears are finally starting to sniff some weakness here, and they're not looking too happy. And one more thing I forgot to mention is going to be, to remove the bands for now, is the 1 hour time frame, which I forgot to mention, is showing that 1 hour bearish market bias, which we all know is a pretty powerful signal. So again, the way I look at it is until we hit my main targets or the market bias turns green in the 1 hour, Tesla is most likely continuing to trend down. And I see no reason for it to stop as of right now, unless this obviously flips, which to me, at the very least, Tesla would need to pretty much recapture $325 per share as early as possible, hopefully tomorrow. Otherwise, I continue seeing more selling pressure. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.